coming into the Riverside Cemetery here to watch the tour that Marty Beglow's given from the Waterbury newspaper. So this is the entrance to the Riverside Cemetery. And I was in the National Guard during the 55 Club. The waters came up to that front entrance, most up to those gates. So it's kind of a good memory for me because I'm building a documentary along with this Riverside Cemetery show that they're doing here today. Hopefully I got over 100 years of family in this community too. This is Nick Kauscher reporting behind the camera here. We're at Riverside Cemetery and I got my driver. My driver's name is what?
Evan.
Evan, how are you doing there today?
I'm doing all right today.
So this is a pretty good thing, huh, Evan? So maybe you can tell us a little bit very low. We don't want to talk too loud because the crowd is in front of us. But your relationship with who's out there and how you know Marty Beglow and how you know what's going on here today. Give us a little story, kind of low key. Go ahead.
Well, this place means a lot to me, Riverside Cemetery. My dad and Marty went to college together, and so I've always known him. But when I heard about Riverside Cemetery, I was really excited to come by and see it for myself. We have a nice big cemetery by where I live. I like to ride my bike around there. So I always love to see just other places. And we came by, and my dad and Marty just kind of walked around, and they just let me roam free. So I know this whole area very intimately.
Oh, good. So we can stay enough behind. We're in the golf cart,
right.
So we'll stay enough behind so you can tell your story on the way up. That'll be good. Give us a little insight of what you know. That'd be good, wouldn't it?
We came by last weekend, and there's a lake to our left, and I just went in with a shovel and a rake and just cleared out some of the garbage in there.
Well, I used to live around the corner up here, up in the Summit Street. We used to climb the wall as little kids. I'm thinking a lot of these people here for years, these are their buried treasures. I mean, look at the size of these graves and look at the size of these monuments. I mean, they're probably the biggest monuments and stuff around, you know what I mean? Is your dad here too today?
He is. I saw him in the crowd somewhere.
Maybe we can get him later. We'll do a little conversation with him too.
Right. He also grew up around this area, so.
What's your last name?
Dowling.
Oh, you grew up in Waterbury here too? So see, we're in a perfect...
My dad grew up in Waterbury. I grew up in Manchester.
Well, we're getting a perfect shot right here. This is so great being in the car with you. I can't thank you enough to help me because I just got out of the hospital here with my legs, but I can't walk around. And God has strange ways of working to help each other, doesn't he?
I'm glad to help you out.
Oh, and see, we got a beautiful shot going on here. Now, that's up off in the distance up there. Do you know what they're doing up there? See, I don't want to get too close with the camera this way here with the sound on our end, so we don't interfere with them.
He might be talking about gravestone cleaning.
Okay.
Which is something that I've helped him do. I came by last weekend, and my dad and I helped him clean some gravestones, which is a lot more fun than you think it is. On the Riverside Cemetery, I think there's a Facebook account. Marty has posted some time lapses of us cleaning them off so you can see the before and after. So that's always very fun.
It's a well-kept cemetery. Look at it, my God.
Marty has done incredible things to this place, really.
Has he?
When I came here last summer, I mean, there were overturned gravestones, things where there was like overgrown just plants, and coming back at the beginning of this summer. And now I'm able to help him and do things.
Do you know how old the cemetery might be?
Gosh.
If not, we'll find out later through the archives, or you'll have it in there somewhere.
There are a lot of people who were transferred here, I believe.
From where? Other cemeteries?
I think so, yeah. There's an amphitheater that when they put the amphitheater in, they moved some bodies from a cemetery across the street.
Yeah, you can talk a little louder now. We're further enough away.
And I don't know if they moved some of those bodies here or not. But I know that there's some pretty regal gravestones up there for like reverends and pastors. So important people are buried here. There's also some cast iron gravestones, which is unusual, but you knock on them and they're hollow.
Wow. Well, I was down here during the 1955 flood. I was in the National Guards then. I just joined the National Guards. I just turned 18 years old. And I was down the bottom of the hill when the floodwaters all hit up here at the bottom of the hill where the church is down there. The floodwaters came right up to the gate.
Really?
So I experienced the flood, and I've seen the first body go by in the river down here in Waterbury. That was very, very devastating. So for the listening audience, or the viewing audience that just tuned in, let me tell you who we are. I have a guest here with me, and his name is?
Evan Dowling.
And Evan is going to tell us a little bit about the story, a little about the history that goes on. And I'm Nick Kausha. I've been in this area, I was born and raised in this area when I was a little boy. And now I'm doing a 100-year documentary, and this fits in perfect to my documentary. Because my parents, my mom came from Sardinia, Italy, and my father came from Foggia, Italy, way back then. And my mom passed away in 1914, and my dad passed away in 1908. So I've got over 100 years of stories to tell here. I'm glad I met you, Kevin. Kevin, right? Evan, okay. So we're far enough away, so now we're not interfering with their speakers. And as we move along here, we'll continue with your story. You notice the 3 family houses in the back, they're way in the back, behind the cemetery.
Yeah.
They're still there, and look at how beautiful they still look.
This back street is amazing, isn't it?
That street is absolutely beautiful. Here we are in Waterbury, Connecticut, at Riverside Cemetery, and we're giving you a back view of what's going on. Marty's up there doing interviews and telling the people about what's going on, and Evan's in the cart here with me, and we're doing the back views. But I want you people to recognize those beautiful homes in the background. As we shoot the camera here, you'll see in the back, those homes have been up there, as far as I know, ever since I've been a kid, before I was a kid. So I'm 88, going on 84 years old now, so I know those houses have been up there at least almost close to 100 years. Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So look how kept clean it is. So we're talking about the positive things in Waterbury today, and how a lot of these people are buried here probably from all over the world. We don't know where they came from, but I could say that a lot of people came from Willow Street and Upper North Main Street and when I was a kid. So I don't know what kind of cemetery is it? Is it all for all denominations, or is it a particular denomination? Do you know?
I think they just, if somebody is in Waterbury, I think they are just buried here. Mm-hmm. And there's a grave up there which is a person named Soy Fu, who was a factory worker, and their grave is all in, I believe it's Chinese characters.
Oh, okay.
So it's very ethnic.
They show these houses, how they withstand all kinds of hurricanes, and they were high enough to be above the 55 flood, and look how beautiful they are in the background there. I mean, those houses anywhere else would probably be $500,000. Those people kept to take care of those homes, I'll tell you.
My name's Evan Dowling, and this is Maddie Begner, right? Yep. I live down in Manchester, Connecticut, and I go to school at the Manchester High School there. And I'm very happy to be here. This place means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to you too. And there's a lot of things to see, a lot of things that can be said about it. I have a very personal connection to it, since my dad and Marty have both worked on this place a lot. I spent a lot of time here just kind of walking around while they were working, getting to know the place very intimately. Last summer was very hard on me. My mother was in a motorcycle accident, and coming here was just a way to get away from everything. So coming back here is just, it's very happy to just be back here and away from everything for a little bit.
Okay, Matt? Go ahead.
My name's Maddie Begnell. I live in Cheshire. I go to school at Cheshire High School. I'm in 10th grade. My dad, Martin, works here. He loves this place, loves the people who work here with him, loves everything about it. I really do enjoy coming here. It's amazing, it's beautiful, there's so many stories. It's just a great place to be.
Matt, tell us a little bit about what you know about what's going on here today and what your dad is doing here today. We did go up in the back and take some video of the people in the background up there. The cemetery looks absolutely gorgeous and well taken care of. Does your dad help maintain the cemetery?
Yeah, he comes here on his weekends sometimes. He helps pick up. We do have a few guys who take care of the grounds because he doesn't particularly do that. But today he's giving a tour like he did in the fall, just showing some of the people here, their stories, where they came from, and their background information.
Okay, and I know your grandfather. I worked with your grandfather in the power company. Him and I worked together for many, many years.
Yeah.
So your grandpa is going to love watching this show. Now let's get back to you a little bit, Evan. Some of the other things you might be able to remember, because you got some history that you could talk about.
I know a little bit. My father grew up here, so I've heard a lot about his personal experience here, but also now that he's working here, coming here on his weekends and helping out, I've learned a lot about the history here. It's all interesting stuff just about the people that are buried here. There's some very important people that are here, pastors and people of religion, and a lot of people from different ethnicities are buried here. So you can just walk down an aisle and just see lots of different things. And there's amazing architecture here. There's lots of statues. Behind us is the chapel, which we worked on last summer, cleaning up a little bit. So slowly but surely everything is coming back to commission.
It looks like this is where we should get started. If we're going to bring Waterbury back together, start at the chapel, start at the cemetery, because that's where we're going to finish off anyway. That's the finish line. Right. So we're at the starting line, and why not put God first and family first and everything else, and God will help us to move forward, right?
Truly.
So tell us a little bit more as you're thinking, Mark. What do you want? What else do you want to say?
I don't have much to say. All I know, it's a great place.
Well, tell us about you and your family history, your dad and your grandfather.
Okay, so my dad has always known about this place. He was raised in Waterbury, born and raised. He has a few sisters here, but they moved out over time. One of my ancestors, he was, I believe, he was one of the first custodians here at Riverside, and I'm pretty sure he had a house before the highway was here, a little house over by the lake, by the river, I mean. Yeah, and my dad just thought it was awesome, and he had a legacy here, and he really wanted to just start something.
Yeah, and I was here during the 55 flood when the waters were high over that gate. I was 18 years old when the first body came down to this. Of course, there were all houses down there. You wouldn't believe it, the devastation that they had here in Waterbury. You kids weren't around then, but God has brought us back together again here today to show how Waterbury is coming back together. And it's you kids that are going to bring this city and the community back together. So I remember where you guys live too, on Proctor Street, right?
I think so, yeah.
Proctor Street, yeah. And now where's your grandfather? In Cape Cod, right?
Yep.
So he'll probably see this video. I'm sure he'll enjoy seeing you on the video.
Yeah.
Now you're in school now? You're in college?
No, I'm in high school. I'm in 10th grade.
In Cheshire?
Yep.
And you're graduating? No, let's see, 2 more years, is that it?
Yep.
So you're in Cheshire and you're a Waterburyan and you're a Waterburyan, right?
I'm in Manchester, Connecticut. I go to Manchester High School. I'm in 9th grade. It's a lot different up there, but I've always loved coming down to Waterbury and seeing where my dad grew up. It's like a second home to me.
And your dad's in the tour over here today, right?
Yeah, he's somewhere in the crowd.
So in general, you could tell maybe the viewing audience a little bit about what the crowds are doing here today and what the tour is kind of like. Can you know that story?
I have not personally taken a tour, but I've seen them happen enough that I know that you really get to see the best of Riverside Cemetery. You get to see the parts that they're working on right now, so you get to see like a before and after, and also what they're working on. You also get to see a lot of the important gravestones to look at. You get to see a lot of the monuments and statues that are built. I hope that soon they'll open up the chapel for you to be able to go inside of. Taking the tour, you get a workout walking around, but you also just get to see a lot of stuff that you might not even notice if you're just walking around right.
So you're familiar with the chapel.
I am.
And Matt, you're familiar with your dad's news columns and newspaper.
Yeah.
How long's your dad been in the newspaper business, you know?
Well, we moved here from Michigan around 15 years ago, and even back when we lived in Michigan, he's worked with the news, so he's been all his life here.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of news stories with your dad too here in Waterbury, and they've always been accommodating to me. My wife had just passed away of pancreatic cancer last year, so it's been a kind of a burden on me, but your dad's covered a lot of stories for me during the transition of what's going on with us. But when I was a little kid, we used to walk that entire wall on the cemetery wall, all the way around. I was 12 years old. And I lived over there on Summit Street, you know. So anything else you want to tell us in closing comments? Tell us one more time who you are and where you're from.
I'm Maddie Begnell. I live in Cheshire, Connecticut.
Okay.
In Cheshire High School.
I'm Evan Dowling, and I live in Manchester, Connecticut.
Well, thank you very much, guys and girls.
Thank you.
My name is Evan Dowling. We are here inside of the Riverside Cemetery Chapel. It's very big in here. It's still being worked on. There's still some parts of it that we are not able to access, which is perfectly fine. We are right here in the main big room, which you can probably tell by the echo. I have this little pamphlet here, and I thought I'd read you an excerpt from it on the history of this chapel. The Riverside Cemetery is truly a microcosm of the history of Waterbury, Connecticut. On its stones are carved the names of men and women who made the city an industrial powerhouse and the brass center of the world. The first section of this lovely spot above the Naugatuck River was purchased in 1850. It was considered an ideal location for a new cemetery to replace the old burying ground on Guard and Meadow Streets. Dedicated in 1853, Riverside Cemetery soon became a park-like sanctuary with beautiful trees, lakes, and magnificent monuments, many created by famous sculptors. The Gothic Revival Stone Hall Memorial Chapel, designed by noted Waterbury architect Robert W. Hill, was completed in 1885. It was built at the bequest of Samuel W. Hall in memory of his wife Nancy Austin Hall. The historical significance of this cemetery, its statuaries and chapel have resulted in its placement in 1988 on the National Register of Historic Places. So many people not only recognize Riverside Cemetery, but this chapel is a very important part of Waterbury history because it's one of the oldest points in Waterbury itself. You can probably tell by just looking outside and seeing how much of the cemetery and this chapel have, been dilapidated. But slowly but surely, like I mentioned in the interview, Marty and his friends are really building this place back up, which is, it makes my father very happy. My father grew up here, and he loves to see, a different perspective of his childhood. And this building has been through a lot. It survived the Great Waterbury flood, as did the cemetery. But you can really tell, just how much time it's been sitting here, because it's just really started to show its wear. I came here last summer with my dad to help Marty clean off some of the pews and just clean up the area in general. And I got to see firsthand the untouched product of the chapel, and just seeing the cracked walls and the damaged windows. It made me very sad just to see such a place that is on the National Register of Historic Places just be so downtrodden. And
Well,
now,
what's nice is I was here during the 1955 flood.
yeah,
So it's an appreciation for me to see how this chapel withstood the floodwaters and everything else. And somewhere in this building, there's got to be flood markers, how high the water level came up. You can find out later and everything else. But my name is Nick Kausha. I'm a Waterbury resident. I lived up here on Summit Street in Waterbury, Connecticut. And when I was 17, just turned 18, almost 18 years old, I was in the National Guards right down here, sitting right there outside this gate, a little bit high for the floodwaters, but the floodwaters were right up to the fence and everything else. So it's kind of a great memory for me. And I'm doing the documentary and everything else, so I'm fitting this into my documentary. Go ahead, tell us a little bit more.
I think that it's a great metaphor, I guess one might call it, that even though Riverside Cemetery has been through so much, even coming here last summer when work had started but not much had gotten done, there was still so much beauty in the area. And even in here, even though it's a very damaged area, this is one of my favorite places in the whole cemetery. There's a big stained glass window above and behind me, which I hope we'll be able to get a shot of. But it's just some of the most intricate work that I've ever seen, and it's always been here.
So these windows and the behind us and everything else, they're the original for this cemetery.
I believe so.
Have they been refurbished or anything, or it is the way they are?
Well, there is a restoration section on this pamphlet. If you'd like, I can read that off. The sturdy monuments and natural grandeur of Riverside have withstood the abrasions of time, but Mother Nature has not been kind to it. A well-supported fundraising effort initiated in 1989 enabled a major restoration of the grounds to commence in 1991. The central waterway, which runs the length of the hillside and its focal point, was completely dredged and re-landscaped. The two ponds, long clogged with sills and other debris, once again flow into the other and are among the prettiest sights in Waterbury. In addition, staged but aged trees in dangerous condition were removed. Vertical gravestones toppled from erosion or brought down by the vandals have been reset. The narrow, antique roadways, however, designed with graceful curves, crowned in the middle and guttered with cobblestones, defy restoration. Keeping them passable by patching and filling is the only possible option. It appears to the Hall Memorial Chapel, covering broken stained glass, peeling paint and plaster, and the roof damage remain to be accomplished. So there's still lots of work to be done, but they still managed to keep not only this chapel, but the entire cemetery beautiful through all the years that it's been here. And I think that's very inspiring. It's a true test to how Waterbury just does not crack.
And now today, as we speak, Marty Begnell, in your father's name, is out.
Patrick Dowling.
He's out there today. They're both out there giving this tour on this day. What is the date today?
I want to say the 22nd, but I wouldn't trust my memory. It is the 22nd. Look at that. Good for me.
May 22nd.
I'm on top of things.
So the 22nd
Of May.
May.
2021.
2021, we're doing this, and you're coming out and tell us a little bit about this place, sir.
Why?
Well, because we were stumped on the glass, but he read it. You wouldn't know if this is the original glass or not, would you?
It is the original glass. However, there are pieces that have been replaced along the years that have been, if you see the bottom row there, the green, you'll see white panels where green should be. So there's been pieces and parts replaced over the years. Right outside this doorway, there's an etched archway. There was a greenhouse attached here.
Now, are you a Waterburyan too?
I'm a Waterburyan.
How long you been in Waterbury?
All my adult life.
Well, I've been here 83 years, so.
God bless you.
I grew up here up in Summit Street.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, my grandfather grew up on, Maladies.
Oh, I know where you're talking about.
Wilson
Dreyer, Wilson Street?
Wilson Street.
The
Lower Wilson.
houses behind the cemetery are beautiful.
They are.
Now, I got to get you on so people don't know who you are. Who am I talking to here?
Therese Richardson.
And
I'm the president of the Board of Trustees for Riverside Cemetery.
Oh, so can you tell us what you guys, what's the ultimate goal here? To refurbish this and
The
open
ultimate
it?
goal is to restore the chapel back to its grandeur that it once was, secure it up safely so people can come in and
So-
see what we have to offer here. They
How
used
many?
to-
Now, with the pandemic and everything else, there's no rule now. That's all done with. You can bring in as many. So how many can you fit in there?
Sitting-wise, comfortably 50, 60 people.
Now, the organization, it's open to all organizations, any organization, or is it a particular organization?
For burials or for?
No, for to come in to go to mass or whatever.
They used to hold meetings here. They had funerals, weddings, just general meetings. There were several different associations that used to use it for meetings.
And how's it going to be now? Is it going to be open to the public to use, or
Once
just
we're restored,
and
and
you
it's safe.
and you use it for what? Any kind of meetings for booking, any type of meeting?
We're hoping trying to eventually get it so that we can book people, different organizations that wish to use it for meetings. We hope to be able to accommodate funerals again, memorial masses, possibly weddings.
Well, I'm just my opinion. I don't know if they're probably going to do it or not, but the Board of Education with the kids and everything, this is an excellent educational program.
Yes.
To see, these are original people, they're born and raised and grew in water. Everybody says to me, oh, Waterburyans are leaving. They're all leaving. I just did an interview with the police chief of Waterbury. They're not leaving Waterbury. They're leaving to go into the cemetery so they can go to a better place.
Yes.
The true Waterburyans are buried right here in these cemeteries.
They're still here. Kennedy High School actually had a program where annually they would bring children down, students down, and go through the history of the gravestones, the history of the city. That stopped with the pandemic. I don't know if they'll start that back up again or not.
Yeah, and all the history's in the library, right? They can grab anything they want. So I would be glad to help out, like with video productions in here, anything that you would have going on. And it could be an educational program, not just for the kids, but senior citizens like me. That's why I'm doing my documentary. If it's God's will, I might live 16 more years. I don't know. Why should all my talent and everything be wasted and grown into the ground if I'm doing something positive? God's going to keep me alive to extend my message.
Yes.
So I'm kind of tied between all different kinds of religions. I'm not in one particular religion anymore right now. I've gone through all different kinds. And right now I feel, not that I'm Billy Graham or anybody else, but I feel neutral. I mean, everybody's got problems, the religions, the politicians. Well, God is upset. I think God's upset. And I think this is a blessing for me to be here today so I can share my ministry, which is being out there for everyone. That's what God wants us all to love each other, everybody.
We need more love in this world.
Well, it's very, very sad right now.
Yeah.
And there's so much mistrust. The country's split up, but we don't want to get into the political arena.
No, we don't.
But the point is, God is telling us, you better start pulling together.
Absolutely.
You know, he's not forcing us. We have a free will. But I think we're into Armageddon and biblically and all that stuff. And I believe in Psalms 90, verse 10. I don't know if you know anything about the certain Psalms, but Psalms 90, verse 10 says, once you become 80, you become mighty. But after that, I'm not saying it exactly the way the scripture is. But after that, it seems like it's downhill and you're going somewhere else. You know, so that's why I'm shooting to make a 100-year documentary and staying alive. And if I don't finish the documentary, then I have my kids do it.
Absolutely.
So
That would be wonderful.
That's my goal here.
That would be wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Patrick Dowling, and I was born and raised in Waterbury, Connecticut. Grew up in the east end of town. And my father and mother were Waterbury natives and were very instilled in the history of Waterbury. My father was born here in 1919, my mother in 1929. And when I went away to college, I went to the Waterbury branch of the University of Connecticut. On the very first day of school, I met my friend Marty Begnell, who is one of my best friends to this day. And one of the first things that we started to do together was to share in the excitement that we both had about the city of Waterbury. And one of the things that we did was we would come here to the Riverside Cemetery. We would drive around and look at the beautiful gravestones, and then we were curious about who these people were. So we would go down to the Silas Bronson Library and go into the genealogy department, and we became intimately familiar with the histories of Waterbury and did the research on these amazing people and learned more about the city, and we studied the architecture, and it's been a lifelong pursuit to learn that stuff and to share it and to keep the memory of these amazing people and these buildings and these places like the cemetery alive. About 4 years ago, Marty called me one day and told me that he was now on the board of Riverside Cemetery, and he invited me to join as well. And so we are now members of the board of the Friends of Riverside Cemetery, and it's been a joyful experience. And we're now, whereas 35, 40 years ago we were driving around fascinated by the history, we're now actively participating in keeping the history alive and keeping the cemetery going. And it's a joyous experience. And so we're doing a tour today and we're sharing some of the details of the history of the people and the symbology of the gravestones. And the turnout has been absolutely amazing, and the interest has been amazing. And so many people have come up to us and said that they've driven by this place all their lives and have never come in. And so to be able to turn people onto this place and to excite them about this history and to have it come alive is a very rewarding thing to be able to do. I love this city, I love this town, I love the people in it. I love my memories of my growing up here, and I want to encourage other people to appreciate it the way that my friend Marty and I do.
Well, you know what's interesting? My name is Nick Kosh. I'm a long-time resident of Waterbury, Connecticut. I'm 83 years old, going on 84, and God works in strange ways. With all this pandemic and everything that's going on now, He wants His children to come together. And I think this is a great place for me to start my documentary of 100 years for my family in Waterbury. My father came in from Foggia, Italy, Carlentina Foggia. My mother came from Sardinia, and both of them have passed away now. And my loving wife has just passed away from pancreatic cancer. So God has given me this opportunity to start my documentary, and I didn't know where I was going to start it because I got a lot of video done already, but I think this is where He wants me to start it. I guess a good place to start something is where you're going to end up. So we all know.
A long time from now, Nick. A long time from now.
Well,
You've got a few years left.
Got a few years left, but God's got me in the ministry now, and I'm in the ministry for all religions, all politicians. I'm not any particular one over the other because God loves everybody.
That's a good way to look at it.
The whole thing is, I was down in this hall or church. What do you call this? A rectory or church? What is it?
Memorial Hall.
Memorial Hall. During the 1955 flood, I seen the first body go by me when I was in the National Guard during the night, and the water was up to the fence levels here. Somewhere in this building, there's the water levels of when the 1955 flood happened.
That's right.
And here we are, so many years later, doing this historical event of memories of people way back when that were actually not resurrecting them, but we're bringing their memories and their thoughts and ideas back.
Keeping them alive. Yeah.
Keeping them alive. And I had your son on earlier, and he was great. So basically, where'd you work?
I worked for a Mexican restaurant, New Hampshire based, for many, many years.
Okay.
Haven't worked in Waterbury since college, but I work with pantries now, helping them get food pantries all over the state of Connecticut.
Okay, so you know Paul Scampolini and everybody else in Waterbury.
Yep.
Yeah, Paul's a good friend of mine too, and we did a lot of shows with Paul. And the food pantry, ironically, after this pandemic, I think we're going to see a lot of food pantries. I think it's going to be
There's
a lot of need for keeping people around and keeping people alive.
Yep.
So once again, let's reiterate a little bit about what is the ultimate goal for this building, and what you need fundraising, you need people
Well,
in.
the goal for the building is it's in great disrepair. The highway has rattled its bones loose, and it needs a lot of work. The wall facing Riverside Street is coming away from the roof. The eaves are separating, and we need a great deal of repair. The steeple is in disrepair. It needs to be taken down and reassembled. It's going to need about $2 million worth of work, and so we're looking to raise that fund through grants and to raise awareness and to get people involved and impassioned, and helped us to preserve this very, very beautiful building called the Hall Memorial Chapel. So we're embarking on that. That's the primary purpose of the Friends of Riverside Cemetery. But along with that is to raise awareness about the cemetery and to teach people about the cemetery and make them really appreciate what they have here. We're on the historic register as a historic cemetery, part of the rural cemetery movement. We're also in the process of getting a licensed arborist in here so that we can be listed as an arboretum. You have to have at least 100 different varieties of trees and plants, which we do. So we need them all documented so that we can be listed that way as well. There's much to see here. It's a very beautiful place. It's a very serene place. And it's never looked more beautiful than it does now. It's being maintained more beautifully now than it has been any time in my lifetime. And it's a joy to be a part of that experience and to have a hand in that. And I welcome anybody to come down and to check this place out. And we're open, I think, 9 to 4. Currently our hours are 9 to 4, 7 days a week. You're welcome to come down and wander through. It's a serene place. It's a quiet place to contemplate. And it looks a lot like it did when it was built 150, 160 years ago.
So on the tour today, what kind of motivation, what kind of things are you going to have going on here? What kind of activity?
This particular tour, while it deals with some of the famous people that are here, we did that tour in the fall, the big names that are interred here. But what this one is really about is to teach people about the symbology of the gravestones, the grave markers, and the monuments, because there's a lot of detail and there's a lot of great stories about how the markings on the stones have evolved. And so Marty Begnall's tour today concentrates on the symbology as well as the people that are buried here and the interrelationship between the people and the people who made the monuments on behalf of those people who are here and what those symbols represent. So it's a really great tour. It's about a little less than 2 hours with a break in the middle, and we go all over the whole cemetery. It's a 36-acre cemetery. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, I grew up in the backyard over here on Summit Street, so I'm very familiar with the area. And it was nice and peaceful where I grew up. We had a lot of good memories here, you know?
Yeah.
But I was trying to find out earlier today, because I could see the cemetery is over 100 years old. Does anybody know how old this cemetery is?
1853 is when it opened.
1853.
1853, and it replaced the old burial grounds that were located at the Silas Bronson Library. That was called the old burying grounds. What's called Library Park today was where the original cemetery was in downtown. And then they decided that there was this movement to bring cemeteries a little bit further out of town. And not have them up against where businesses are and families were. So they moved it out. And at the time that they built this here, there were no homes, there were no businesses, there were no buildings on this side of the Naugatuck River. So they marked out this plot of land, and they had an architect design it. And Robert W. Hill was the architect for this beautiful chapel, Hall Memorial Chapel. And he's buried here.
Now, as you leave the chapel here and you walk up on the right-hand side, is that the Wilton? Is that the same one? Welton, is that the same one with the horse on the green?
That is.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
I will let somebody, I'll leave that story to somebody else.
Is somebody else here that could tell us?
Yes, the Welton family, that is, the horse on the green is the Carrie Welton Fountain, and her father is buried here, and that's her father's monument. Her father and mother are buried here. That's the Welton Monument, and it's the second or third stone that Marty covers on the tour here. But yes, that is the Welton family. There's Hobart Welton, and I think that's Joseph Welton, who's buried, or John Welton, I forget which. He's right up here on the hill. I
mean, that's a massive thing up there. To put that thing together now, God only knows how much it would cost.
Yeah, it's quite a monument.
So how did the tour go today? What are some of the things you got?
Oh, we got a lot of great feedback. So a lot of folks said that they'd never been here before, or they'd been here but didn't know the history. And Marty is such a font of knowledge. He really gave them a great insider's tour of the cemetery. This is called the Secrets of Riverside Cemetery. So he talks a lot about the details of the cemetery and the cemetery movement and the people of Waterbury that most people just don't know, that he's discovered through his research and through our research of the history of Waterbury.
Well, what I find amazing, and it probably goes over a lot of people's heads, they don't even look at it, but when I was out there filming today, the houses up there on the next street over, I think it's Alder Street maybe?
Dreher.
The Tree family houses, if those are the original houses, I mean, they got to be worth tons of. They look beautiful. You don't even know you're in Waterbury looking at those houses. You think you're out of town in Cheshire or Middlebury or somewhere else. Well, that's how those things got restored, and they stayed restored. They're beautiful, you know.
Yeah.
And some of the people that are buried here, a lot of them from Willow Street, a lot of them are Jewish people probably that were buried.
No Jewish here. No.
Yeah, I don't know what religions or whatever buried.
These are Episcopalians and Protestants and Very few Catholics here.
Very few.
Mostly the Protestants were buried here.
And most of them at that time were transit people, like they were coming in from Europe then, a lot of people.
Well, no, the people that are buried here were long established here.
Oh, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, these people were here for generations. They were well established.
That's what we're missing.
Made their money. This was a private place that you had to pay to come into.
Okay, so yeah, that's
there was a cemetery on the other side of Riverside, of Sunnyside, that was where poorer folks, that was called City Cemetery. That's where the poorer folks were buried. And that's where the indigent folks were buried, and where the really poor people were buried.
That's why the graves would look so.
And then the Irish were buried out at St. Joseph's Cemetery, out what's now Hamilton Avenue, but at the time was called Dublin Street.
Okay, so this was reserved for the real rich.
This was the hoity-toity. Yeah, these were the movers and shakers. These were the founding fathers, or not the founding fathers, but these were the guys that made Waterbury into the brass center of the world.
Well, you're looking like at the factory managers, the bosses. You're looking at like
factory owners,
the owners,
the
Pharaohs, and all those people.
The
Scovels, American Brass.
Yes,
they all lived here. So that's quite a thing here.
Yeah,
and you think of those graves.
The history is buried here.
Not only the history, but look at the financial thing. What it costs. It's probably one of the most expensive graves around that I could think of.
Yeah, they're beautiful monuments. We invite people to come down and check them out.
So you want to make some closing comments?
Just want folks to come down and check it out and experience the Riverside Cemetery for yourself. We have information on our Facebook page and on our Instagram page and on our website, riversideCemeteryConnecticut.org. We have great upcoming events, and we would love for you to be a part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.